Emma nodded and turned to leave, then paused. Mrs. Whitfield? If you ever want to visit Mom during her good days, she'd probably like that. She gets bored just lying around. As Karen watched the girl walk back across the yard, the same yard she'd photographed and documented and complained about, she realized that all her surveillance had missed the most important thing of all. She'd been so busy looking for violations that she'd failed to see the people. Tomorrow would bring the board meeting, the resignation, probably the end of the identity she'd built over 3 years. But tonight, she had a casserole made by a woman she'd wronged, delivered by a daughter she'd frightened, offered in a spirit of grace Karen wasn't sure she deserved. She closed the door and leaned against it, still holding the warm dish. Through the thin walls of her empty house, she could hear the distant sound of the Henderson family talking, laughing, living their complicated, messy, beautiful life. For the first time in months, Karen smiled. Not the tight-lipped smile of catching someone in a violation, but something softer, sadder, and somehow more real. The casserole smelled like forgiveness. But outside, the security camera's red light blinked steadily in the darkness, and Karen couldn't shake the feeling that her story with the Hendersons was far from over. Detective Martinez looked exactly like central casting would order for a sympathetic but firm cop, salt and pepper hair, kind eyes, and the sort of patient demeanor that probably worked well with both criminals and crazy neighbors. He sat in Karen's living room, notebook open, while she fidgeted with her coffee cup. The Hendersons aren't pressing charges, he said without preamble. Karen's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank God. But Martinez continued, they want a restraining order. And frankly, after hearing their side of the story, I can understand why. What did they tell you? Martinez flipped through his notes. 3 weeks of surveillance, photos taken of their property, following their teenage daughter to school, questioning their house guests about their business there. Each accusation hit Karen like a physical blow. When had she become this person? I was protecting the community, she whispered. From what? Martinez leaned forward. Mrs. Whitfield, the Hendersons showed me the complaint letters you've sent. 17 separate violations in the past month. Grass half an inch too long. Trash cans visible from the street for 6 minutes past pickup time. A garden gnome that violated the tasteful lawn decoration clause. Karen stared at her hands. The scratch marks from the roses looked like a roadmap of her poor decisions. Do you want to know what the Hendersons are really doing? Martinez asked. She nodded, afraid to speak. Lisa Henderson has been battling breast cancer for 8 months. The suspicious vehicles are friends and family bringing meals, helping with housework, driving her to treatment. The unauthorized visitors are nurses, physical therapists, and volunteers from their church. The coffee cup slipped from Karen's fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor. Coffee spread across the boards she'd spent Saturday morning polishing to a perfect shine. The packages you've been documenting. Medical supplies, nutritional supplements, comfort items from relatives across the country. Martinez's voice remained steady, professional. The commercial activity you reported is a woman fighting for her life with the help of her community. Karen couldn't breathe. The perfect living room seemed to spin around her as the full weight of her mistakes crashed down. She'd been so focused on rules, on violations, on maintaining her vision of order, that she'd missed the human story playing out next door. I didn't know, she managed. Because you didn't ask, Martinez replied. You assumed, you investigated, you accused. But you never just knocked on their door and asked if everything was okay. Through the window, Karen could see Bob Henderson installing a new security camera, pointing directly at her property. The message was clear. Stay away. What happens now? She asked. Now you decide what kind of neighbor you want to be. Martinez closed his notebook and stood. The restraining order hearing is next Friday. The Hendersons are willing to drop it if you resign from the HOA board and agree to professional counseling. After he left, Karen sat among the broken coffee cup pieces, her reflection fractured in the spilled liquid. Her phone buzzed with another text from Gladys. Emergency board meeting tomorrow. Your resignation will be discussed with or without you. But as the afternoon wore on, something unexpected happened. Instead of planning her defense or crafting justifications, Karen found herself thinking about Lisa Henderson. How long had she been sick? How many times had Karen seen her looking tired and assumed laziness instead of illness? How many opportunities to show kindness had she missed while obsessing over property values? The doorbell rang at 6 p.m. Karen opened it to find a teenage girl holding a casserole dish. Emma Henderson, 16 years old, with her mother's gentle eyes and her father's stubborn chin. "My mom sent this," Emma said quietly. "She said you might be hungry." Karen stared at the dish, then at the girl whose family she'd terrorized for weeks. "Your mother is making me dinner? After what I did?" Emma shrugged. "She says everyone deserves compassion, especially when they're struggling. But your family, I caused so much trouble." "Yeah, you did," Emma agreed matter-of-factly. "But Mom says hurt people, and maybe you're just really lonely." The simple observation hit harder than any police report or board meeting ever could. Karen took the casserole with trembling hands, feeling tears she'd held back all day finally spill over. "Thank you," she whispered. "Please tell your mother. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I'm so very sorry." The crash of splintering wood echoed through Maple Grove subdivision at 6:47 a.m., followed by a string of profanity that would make a sailor blush. Karen Whitfield lay sprawled in the Hendersons' prize-winning rose bushes, her HOA president badge glinting mockingly in the morning sun as thorns punctured her sensible cardigan. "Jesus Christ on a cracker," she wheezed, spitting out mulch and what appeared to be fertilizer. Above her, a section of the Hendersons' garage roof displayed a Karen-shaped hole, complete with trailing pieces of her surveillance equipment. Mrs. Chen from next door peered over the fence, her coffee mug halfway to her lips. "Karen, what in the world? Nothing to see here." Karen barked, struggling to untangle herself from the roses. "Just conducting routine neighborhood maintenance inspections." The truth was far more embarrassing. For 3 weeks, Karen had been convinced the Hendersons were running an illegal airbim operation. Cars came and went at odd hours. Unfamiliar faces appeared on weekends, and worst of all, they'd been using their driveway for recreational vehicles without proper HOA approval. Her binoculars swung from her neck like a pendulum as she finally freed herself, wincing at the scratches decorating her arms like abstract art. The telephoto lens attachment lay shattered near her feet, $47 down the drain. "Karen," Bob Henderson's voice boomed from their back door. "What the hell are you doing in my wife's roses?" "Think fast," Karen told herself. Bob was built like a retired linebacker and had zero patience for her community improvement initiatives. "Your roof tiles are loose," she called back, brushing debris from her hair. "I was documenting safety violations when the structure gave way. You're looking at a lawsuit waiting to happen." Bob's face turned the color of a stop sign. "You were on my roof? At 6 in the morning?" The HOA handbook clearly states. The handbook doesn't give you permission to break and enter. Bob's wife Lisa appeared beside him, her arms crossed. "We could call the police." Karen felt her chest tighten. The police meant questions, reports, and potentially losing her position as HOA president. 3 years of building her reputation as the neighborhood's premier guardian of property values couldn't end like this. "Now see here," she said, straightening her shoulders despite the thorns still embedded in her sweater. "I was investigating complaints about unauthorized commercial activity. Multiple residents have expressed concerns about the unusual traffic patterns around your property." "What residents?" Lisa demanded. Karen's mind raced. She'd made up the complaints herself after seeing too many unfamiliar license plates. Confidential sources. The HOA protects whistleblower identities. Bob stepped closer, his fists clenched. "You damaged my property, destroyed my wife's garden, and you're standing there making accusations. Lady, you've lost your damn mind." The crowd was growing. Mrs. Chen had been joined by the Patels, the newlyweds from the corner house, and old Mr. Kowalski with his ever-present newspaper. Karen realized she was at a crossroads: retreat and lose face, or double down and risk everything. She chose poorly. "Until this matter is resolved," Karen announced loudly enough for everyone to hear, I'm placing this property under official HOA investigation. No modifications, no visitors, no activities that haven't been pre-approved by the architectural committee. The silence that followed was deafening. 20 minutes later, Karen sat in her kitchen, picking phones from her cardigan while speed dialing every HOA board member she could think of. Her hands shook as she scrolled through her contacts, partly from adrenaline, partly from the growing realization that she might have just declared war on the wrong neighbors. Ladies, it's Karen. Emergency board meeting. My house, 9 a.m. sharp. Karen, it's Sunday morning. What could possibly? The Hendersons are running an illegal business operation. I have evidence. She stared at her shattered binoculars on the counter. Substantial evidence. By 9:15, her living room contained the saddest gathering of suburban authority figures ever assembled. Gladys Morrison, treasurer and chronic complainer, clutched her coffee like a lifeline. Tom Bradford, the reluctant secretary who'd only joined to get his wife off his back, kept checking his phone for football scores. Janet Pierce, the newest board member, looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. So let me understand this, Gladys said slowly. You climbed onto their roof to spy on them? To conduct surveillance, Karen corrected. There's a difference. Not to the police there isn't, Tom muttered. Karen felt heat rise in her cheeks. The HOA handbook gives us broad investigative powers. It gives us the power to issue violation notices, Janet interrupted, not to trespass on private property. Besides, Gladys added, what exactly did you see that was so suspicious? Karen had been dreading this question. The truth was, she hadn't seen anything concrete. Different cars, unfamiliar faces, some laughter that seemed too loud for her taste. But admitting that would mean admitting she'd risked everything on a hunch. Multiple vehicles, non-resident foot traffic, potential zoning violations. She pulled out a notebook filled with license plate numbers and timestamps. I've been documenting patterns for weeks. Tom leaned forward. Karen, the Hendersons have teenage kids. Kids have friends. Friends drive cars. At midnight, on school nights. It's summer break, Janet said gently. The room fell silent except for the tick of Karen's grandmother's clock. She could feel her carefully constructed case crumbling like the roof tiles she'd destroyed. There's something else, she said desperately. They've been receiving packages. Lots of packages. Amazon, FedEx, UPS, sometimes 3 deliveries a day. So does half the neighborhood, Gladys replied. Including you. Karen stood abruptly, pacing to the window that offered a perfect view of the Henderson property. Police tape now cordoned off the damaged roof area, and she could see Bob talking animatedly to someone with a clipboard, probably an insurance adjuster. They're going to sue, she said quietly. Probably, Tom agreed, and they'd have every right to. The HOA insurance might cover property damage, Janet offered, but if they press criminal charges for trespassing. Karen closed her eyes. 15 years of marriage to Harold before the cancer took him. 22 years raising 2 kids who now called twice a month if she was lucky. 3 years pouring her heart into this community, trying to maintain standards, trying to matter. I need you to back me up, she said, turning to face the group. Official board investigation. We present a united front. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Karen, Gladys said finally, I think you need to consider stepping down. What? Just temporarily, until this blows over. Let someone else handle the Henderson situation. You're abandoning me. The words came out sharper than Karen intended. After everything I've done for this community, you're throwing me under the bus to protect yourselves. Tom stood up. We're trying to protect the HOA from a lawsuit we can't win. And we're trying to protect you from criminal charges, Janet added softly. Karen felt the walls closing in. Through the window, she could see more neighbors gathering around the Henderson property, pointing at the roof damage, shaking their heads. Her phone had been buzzing with text messages all morning. Words like unhinged and liability kept appearing in the previews. Fine, she said. But I'm not giving up. If you won't help me prove the Hendersons are violating community standards, I'll do it myself. After the board members left, Karen sat alone in her perfect living room, Every throw pillow precisely placed, every surface dust-free, every rule followed to the letter. But perfection felt hollow when nobody was there to witness it. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Whitfield? This is Detective Martinez with the County Sheriff's Office. We need to talk.